Controversy tonight over a new policy on how gender identity is addressed.
You may notice it at the bottom of your emails or in Zoom meetings, the listing of pronouns next to someone's name.
When should you use the pronouns he, him, or she, hers? UCLA's Wilson Institute estimates just under 0.5% of us are non-binary, meaning neither male nor female, or identify with a gender not assigned at birth.
Point Park University in the middle of a national dispute over pronouns.
Point Park warns students if they use the wrong pronouns on a student, if an individual is impacted in a harmful way, action could be taken.
A kindergarten teacher is facing outrage after discussing gender identity with her students.
The kindergartners came home very confused about whether or not you can pick your gender, whether or not they really were a boy or a girl.
Many parents say they feel betrayed and blindsided.
I want her to hear from me as a parent what her gender identity means to her. My daughter went home crying, shaking, so afraid that she could turn into a boy.
And the friend likes to ask the question, are you a boy or a girl? And Nash answers, I'm just a kid.
But kids can be boys or...
They can be boys or girls. Yeah.
Or maybe non-binary.
Yeah.
It was just like non-binary, yeah. That's just something that we know. And this is something, I mean, it's like, they're 4 and 5 years old, and they just didn't make a big deal out of being a boy or a girl.
And I think it was a huge testament to how much we've been talking about it in the classroom that you never mentioned the term non-binary. It was a child who brought that up because it's constantly in conversation.
Yeah, just like me. So Nash, just like me, is non-binary. So they aren't sure if they're a boy or a girl. So when people ask them, are you a boy or a girl? Right now they just feel like saying, I'm a kid. They're figuring it out.
Why does he like stars?
They like stars.
They like stars.
Yeah. And they are really...
Wear a star shirt?
They wore their star shirt because it's their favorite shirt, and because they were nervous today, they thought they would wear something that makes them feel special.
So here's a talk with a student that I had that makes me happy that I teach kindergarten. So we're walking back from a nature walk because my job is cool, and one of my students stops in line and turns around because I was at the end playing caboose. And he says, Mr. Cow, do you think I'm a boy or a girl? I paused and I said, student, I don't get to decide if you're a boy or a girl. Only you get to decide if you're a boy or a girl. So what do you think? And he sits and he looks contemplative for a second. And then he looks at me and he says, I'm a boy. And I said, excellent news. Thanks for letting me know.
I had my first day as a sub today, and there are many things I would like to talk about, but today I would like to talk about how I am the political unrest that Cedar City needs. So besides the fact that I dyed my hair purple last night and I have 2 visible tattoos, I wrote my pronouns as she, any up on the board. I was teaching 10th grade, and I told this to all my classes, and it wasn't until the last period where someone was like, what's the second pronoun? And so I explained, I was like, I do she, any pronouns. I do go by any pronouns, she, he, they, it, anything, but I am totally okay with you just referring to me as she. And they were kind of confused about it for a minute, and I was like, and you can't misgender me, so don't even think about it. I do respond to all genders. And this one kid just like looks down and goes, IQ 1000, my guy. Iconic, thank you. And I just realized that my Hydro Flask is in this video, and that's my I don't care what the Bible says sticker, which I forgot I left up at the front of the classroom when I was in the back office.
So this question says, what do your students call you since you're non-binary? Miko's one of my students. What do you call me, Miko?
They, them.
That's my pronouns, but what do you call me as your teacher?
Teacher Roby.
So you know my pronouns are they, them. You know that you go by, or I go by Teacher Roby. What are your pronouns?
She, her.
Very good. And how do you feel about calling me Teacher Roby, and how do you feel about my pronouns being they, them?
I feel good about your pronouns, and I think you should accept yourself and don't listen to the disrespect.
You should definitely accept yourself. Absolutely. I love that for you. And when sometimes if a student messes up my pronouns and says she, her, or calls me Miss Roby, what do I say?
You say she or they.
Right. And then I also will remind you to call me what?
Teacher Roby.
And that's it. Do I ever get upset at you?
No.
Do I ever make you upset or feel unsafe?
No.
Do you feel safe?
Yes.
Very good. All right, say bye.
Bye.
PSA to all educators, especially elementary school educators, do us all a favor, society a favor, and stop breaking your kids up into boys groups and girls groups. Please stop doing it, especially at an elementary level. For academics, for athletics, for all things, stop breaking them up into boys and girls groups. First of all, boys and girls are basically growing at the same level throughout infancy, throughout toddlerhood, and throughout elementary school. It's not until upper elementary where girls actually take off and grow quicker and stronger than boys that later catch up in high school. So this idea that they can't work together, they can't play together, it's not safe, it's wrong. It's not the correct idea. And it creates this idea that boys and girls are inherently different, which is something we're trying to stop in our society. So do us all a favor. Break your kids up into levels. Break your kids up into hair color for all I care. But please, please, please stop breaking your kids up into boys and girls groups.
Today I feel sad because I had to sit through a professional development where we were talking about culture and climate, and we were looking at different subgroups of students and how they had answered different survey questions. And when we were looking at gender, the only students listed were male and female. Not the non-binary students, not the transgender students, not the students who marked prefer not to respond. And I feel sad. I feel sad for them, but I also feel sad for me because it's sad because I now know that no matter how I feel on the inside, the only thing I can mark on a form to have my voice heard is female. And that just sucks. That really sucks. And it's sad. And I feel heavy with that knowledge.
So if you don't know me, I teach middle school, and I get a lot of back and forth on my For You page about the generation that's coming up now. But I will say one of the coolest things about this generation is that they really have tapped into who they are, what they believe, all of that. So specifically, I have one student, well, I've had 3, but one student today came up to me and told me that they wanted me to change their pronouns and they would prefer if I referred to them as a different name. And I was like, yeah, of course, like that's just the respectful thing, right? But in my mind, I was just like, how cool is it to just know that you feel a certain way and that you want to be who you are? And like, I did not have that kind of security when I was in middle school, but like, it just makes me really proud of the kind of people that they're becoming because they know what they want and they know who they are. That's really cool to watch. Respect the pronouns.
It's International Pronouns Day. I'm a non-binary elementary school teacher, so here's how I talk to my students about pronouns and such. Hi, my name is Mix K. It's mix. So kind of like cookie mix or mixing bowl, that sort of thing. That's how it's pronounced. That is my name. That is the name that I'm comfortable with. That is the name that makes me happy, and I would like it if you referred to me as such. See, I'm not a Mr. or a Miss, so I go by Mix because that's what makes me happy. Now, you have a name that you like to be called other than the name that's on the paper, right? It's the same thing for me. I have a name that I prefer to be called, and that's the one that you're going to use for me, okay? Now, I don't consider myself to be a boy or a girl. I just see myself as a person. So that's why I go by Mix. So I'm actually non-binary. I'm not really comfortable with feminine terms being used for me. If you can find some alternatives, that would be great. My pronouns are they, them, and she, her. Thank you so much for asking. What are yours? Talking about gender is not something that's out of the realm for children. Honestly, the most understanding people when it comes to my identity have been the students that I work with. So it's important to be yourself, because being openly you is probably the most important thing you can do for the kids of this generation. So I came out to my school as non-binary back in May, and now we're back at the beginning of the school year, and things have been rough. But there are moments like this past Friday that make my job worth it. I've been working in the library for the past few weeks as a specialist teacher because we don't have our teacher yet. And a week ago or so, one of my students called me like, yes, ma'am. And I said what I usually say, which is, I'm not a ma'am, but I appreciate the sentiment. Now, they were all confused because they didn't know what to call me. And I didn't have really an answer for them at the time. I was just like, honestly, you don't have to use anything. I don't really know. Then this past Friday, I had them again, and one of the students raised their hand and was like, last week you said we couldn't call you ma'am, so what should we call you? And I had a thought. In a moment decision, I looked at my kids and I said, you know what, you can call me Captain, because that'd be funny. There is now a solid at least 10 fifth grade boys who are now calling me Captain K.
Hello everyone. I got a little educator hot tip for you on figuring out how to ask people for the name they go by and also their pronouns. So the first day of classes, the way that I do it is I go around the room and I ask every person to give me their name and their pronouns. Now, if their name is different than what's in my binder, I tell them to make sure they tell me their last name too. So if you go by a different last name because it's your nickname, or you have a name that you go by that's different than your legal name, you don't have to out yourself. That's who you are. I cross it out really dark in my binder so I can't even see it, and I write the new name. Nice and easy, and their last name always lets me know who they are if I have to go into the system. And then in terms of pronouns, I ask every single person to share their pronouns. And I always make the joke, you know what they say about assuming, and I don't want to look like an ass. So you make it about you. I don't want to mess up, so I'm going to ask everyone to use their pronouns. And I do as well. And then I write them next to their name so that every time that I have to look at the attendance, or I can always double check and make sure I'm using the correct pronoun. So far, it's worked really, really well. But if you have other good suggestions for this that can make me do even better, drop them down in the comments. Thank you.
So, something that happened the other day was I was in class and the students all call me Coach Kelly. And a common question to ask is, why are you called Coach Kelly? Do you actually coach anything? And I'm like, yeah, I do. But we call me Coach Kelly because, I'm not a woman or a man, so I'm not Mrs. or Mr. I'm Coach. And most of the students are like, okay, cool, whatever. We're like, yeah, you look like a boy, but he's nice wears dresses, so it kind of makes sense. And then one student raises his hand and goes, well, my mom says that you can't exist because when you're born, the Bible says that you're born either a girl or a boy. And and I was like, some people believe that. And as a queer Christian, that just breaks my heart that something like two identities of mine are being used to harm children, right? And then it pretty much broke my heart, especially when a lot of kids in the class agreed and said their parents said the same thing. And I know it's something in their parents, right? It's not, the kids are just believing what they're told. And then I also do all the after school activities. And two of my favorite kids, one of them, she corrected herself without being reminded or anything. And someone else, who takes too long in the bathroom, one of the little kids. And I said, if you don't come back soon, I'm going to check on you. And he's like, well, you can't go in the boys' bathroom. And another one of the kids, who hates every single teacher he comes into contact with, said, yes, they can. They're non-binary, so they can use whatever bathroom they want. Because someone they love is non-binary, they're okay with it, right? We need to stop teaching our kids that it's this or that, or that it's wrong, because it's not. And quite frankly, being open and having kids see that like that, it just warms my heart that those are the people, there's enough of those people who are going to be running the world one day, and I look forward to it. And that is why I'm a teacher, to teach kids like that, but also to be someone who queer kids can look up to. But that's a story for another day.
Hi everyone! I don't think I've done a general introduction yet as to who I am, so I thought I would do that now. Hi, my name is Bunny and I use bun pronouns. So who am I? I am a gender fluid, trans, femme, panromantic, great ace.
I'm Cody, pronouns em, ers, or zs, or really any neo pronouns that aren't z, her, hers. I am a white, transmasculine, femme, non-binary, temporarily mostly able-bodied, neurodivergent, obsessive-compulsive, chronically ill, culturally Jewish, Unitarian Universalist, non-monogamous, demi-low romantic, gray demi-bisexual, survivor of acute and complex trauma, millennial, and cat parent in mental health recovery.
3 ways to let your friends know what gender you're feeling today! Gender fluid edition! PSA that you don't have to do any of these, these are just things that I do. 1. Pronoun bracelets. You can get different coloured bracelets with different pronouns on. For example, this one says she, her, this one says he, him, and this one says they, them. The colours also correspond to how I'm feeling, so black usually goes with my black male outfits. This usually goes with like my pink female outfits, and this usually goes with my non-binary outfit. Just a way to let your friends know what gender you're feeling today and how they can address you. Pins are also another good option. For example, I have this one that says they, them for when I'm feeling non-binary. 2. Clothing. Personally, I present very typically masculine when I'm feeling like a guy, and I present more ambiguously when I'm feeling like a non-binary, and when I'm feeling like a girl, I usually wear loads of pink. But anyone can wear anything that they want to, and it doesn't necessarily depend on gender. And finally, letting your friends know. Just tell them. That's it. Just tell them when you meet them. I'm feeling like this today, and can you dress me like this?
I have a student in one of my classes that's homophobic, transphobic, sexist, purposefully misgenders me. Back in September, I tried to get him moved to another class because it had just been an ongoing issue. And not only was he rude and disrespectful, he was just like not trying, and wouldn't take direction, would constantly argue with me. It's been an ongoing thing. Was told that it's too late in the year, couldn't move him, he would lose the credit. Yet they transferred someone into my class this month who was only getting half the credit. So it's okay for that kid to get half the credit, but not okay to remove the kid that's harassing me. I went to the counselors today. I've been asking for a parent-teacher conference for months now. Hasn't happened. Counselors won't set it up. But when I mentioned the fact that he's misgendering me on purpose, I was told, well, some religions, you know, they don't have to do that because some religions don't agree with that, so they don't have to respect that. At a public school. Now, I don't know if this kid is religious. I don't think he is, but the counselor sure is. And she made it obvious without directly saying it that she doesn't agree with who I am or my existence, so that's fun. And I hope she has the day she deserves. That's all I'm going to say.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So this comment was put on a video that had absolutely nothing to do with politics, but let's dive in because teaching is political. The education system, the curriculum, school zoning, funding, standardized testing, all of these things can create and further lead to class and racial inequalities and impact life chances for our students. Especially as a history teacher, my students deserve somebody who is going to confront and challenge the injustices and untruths that are in our history that have led to discrimination. So yes, teaching is political because as we develop curriculum and have conversations with our students, equity and anti-racism need to be in the forefronts of our minds, as well as giving our kids the means to gather factual information and form their own opinion. But this is wildly different than indoctrination or propaganda because I'm not trying to sway my students' opinions. I want them to form their own educated opinions. What I'm doing is challenging a broken system and hopefully laying the groundwork for progress and justice.
I got cornered by 3 of my 6th grade students at lunch today, and they came up to me all excited. They were like, Miss Collins, what's your sexuality? And I said, why do you need to know that right now? And they were like, oh, I don't know. I just think you'd be like a super fun, like, bi or pan person. And I said, well, I don't really know how much I'm allowed to talk about this to students, but does looking at my shoelaces help? And these kids just flipped out. They were so excited.
At my school, I'm responsible for the sexuality education of all of our students, from our youngest students who are 3 years old in nursery school, up through our 12th graders who are turning 18 and getting ready to leave high school. That's a huge range, but every single one of those kids is a sexual being. They have been since birth. And at every age and stage, we can offer them age-appropriate, transformative sexuality education. I'm only a small part of the village that supports them as they grow. It's not enough that I teach them. We have to teach them. Part of my message today is that we all, no matter what else we do in life, need to find a way to be sexuality educators for the kids in our lives. If we don't step up, others will. And many of those others don't see wholeness and freedom the way we do. Every day when I walk into the classroom, I face young people who are on a lifelong journey to self-discovery, wholeness, and freedom. Kids today at every age take that journey in the midst of daunting challenges and amazing opportunities. I don't know how historians will talk about the past few years, but there's certainly a lot that's worthy of attention, from the bad, like the Trump administration, to explosions of conscience, like the Me Too and Black Lives Matter movements, increased visibility and social acceptance of transgender, non-binary, queer, asexual, aromantic, and questioning individuals and communities, the COVID pandemic, the Capitol insurrection, the influence, both positive and negative, of the digital world, everything from TikTok to OnlyFans, the overturning of Roe versus Wade, Don't Say Gay bills, censorship in school libraries and in classrooms, and our widening political and cultural divide. How does any kid navigate that without help? They can't, and they don't. This is a tricky time for sexuality educators. The tide has turned against us, and powerful forces on the right have picked up the old weapons of homophobia and sex negativity to try to stop our work. I expect at some point in the coming year, someone will accuse me of trying to groom children. They'll accuse me of recruiting them into a gay lifestyle, or confusing kids by telling them that biological sex isn't binary, and that gender is a social construct and not a divine decree. I'm an easy target for those opposed to comprehensive sexuality education. I'm an openly gay, sex-positive, left-leaning proponent of pleasure equity, reproductive justice, and sexual joy. They'll call what I do and who I am, thank you. They'll call what I do and who I am perverted.
I love these simple questions from trolls who haven't cracked a textbook since middle school. The science is very clear. Sex is not binary. It's actually based on a very complicated interplay between genetics, the endocrine system, and the neuroendocrine system, and transgender people are real. Be mad about it.
Hello, user Honey Mustard Ho. I shall explain what Fey-Fair pronouns are. So Fey-Fair pronouns are a very common noun self set of neopronouns. Neopronouns are pronouns that aren't he, him, his, she, her, hers, or they, them, theirs. Any neopronoun hate, please leave at the door. I don't want to hear it. Here's a handy dandy conjugation guide from a Neopronouns Conjugation Guide at Tumblr. And so it's like, Faye is my friend. I saw Fair yesterday. This was Fair request. That book is Fair's. Faye loves Fair self. Hopefully that makes sense. I just wanted to give like a little guide and show you how to use them. Again, any hate, please leave at the door.
So I have a lot of these comments, so I figured I'd jump in and show one of the many lessons I do through the year around inclusivity. So I usually start with this book, which I absolutely love. It introduces a variety of pronouns as well as multiple pronouns that someone might use. There's also a great video on amaze.org that goes into pronouns and how to respect people's pronouns. All these lessons are done in our morning meeting or in our ELA time because they're connected with writing and with reading. And they hit all our standards. This year's chart is a little wonky, but all of these are from the students. The description and definition I help them with, but then the what to say and how to correct comes explicitly from them. And as you can see, it hangs up on our social justice wall right behind me. And then the infamous llamacorn and narwhal is what we move into. So we actually practice the sayings they came up with using the stuffed animals. So pretty straightforward, pretty simple, something anyone can do in a morning meeting or during a block.
Hey y'all. So recently walking to and fro from my job, I am now starting to get identified as femme presenting to the point where people call me ma'am, or people call me like miss, or things like that. And it's still wrong because I'm non-binary, but there's like a real fun, like chaotic part of that where I can respond in a way that makes them go, what? Because I'll intentionally like lower my voice and they'll be like, excuse me, ma'am, can you help me out with this? I'm like, yeah, what's up? And I think my gender is the emotions of straight people being utterly confused. Like, I just want to instill chaos. And like, that's my pronouns. That's my gender. That's my identity. That's my sexuality. It gives me all the euphoria to cause. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
First, I want to say that anybody can have no pronouns. Whether you're agender, non-binary, or just no pronouns align with you, you can use no pronouns. Now, what that actually means. This means instead of using any pronouns to describe this person, you would be using their full name. I'll use myself for an example. Knowing my pronouns are they, them, you would say, oh, they went to the store and then they recorded some TikToks. But if I were to use no pronouns, I would say, oh, Rachel went to the store and then Rachel recorded some TikToks. Some folks who use no pronouns will also sort of abbreviate their name to create their own pronoun. I'll provide an example. For myself, perhaps I decide that I want my pronoun to be Ray because Rachel is too long for me to say sometimes. Then I would say, Ray went to the store and then Ray recorded some TikToks. That way I'm still not using any pronouns that exist or any gendered pronouns. Instead, I'm almost using my own nickname as a pronoun. Does that make sense?
This is Cypress, and Clown mentioned not having people use clown or clown self pronouns for clown, and so in this situation, I would make sure that I exclusively use clown pronouns to talk about Cypress, so Cypress knows that I see clown self for who clown is, and I want clown to be hearing those pronouns.
I would encourage the committee to vote no on this amendment for a few reasons: practical, financial, social, emotional. First, there are a lot of schools that are moving towards gender neutral bathrooms, and if we add female, we might become obsolete very quickly. Second, not all students who menstruate are female. We need to make sure that all students have access to these products. There are obviously less non-female menstruating students, and therefore their usage will be much lower. And that was actually calculated into the cost of this and how much we decided to fund it. And so we do not expect that the non-female menstruating students will use these products as much as the students using female bathrooms, but it's important to have them there. And that brings me to just the social emotional reasons for that. These students who are not female, who menstruate, face a greater stigma and barrier to asking for these products, and so providing them in an easily accessible place in all student bathrooms is particularly important for those students.
Period poverty doesn't just affect women. Two-spirits, trans men, non-binary people, and genderqueer people can all have periods. And arguably, period poverty may be higher in these populations. Here's why. You ever seen a tampon dispenser or a box of free tampons in a men's bathroom? What about a period aisle not labeled feminine hygiene or pink boxes all around it? Periods can be a really tough and dangerous time for people that aren't cisgender women. So if you're donating period products or putting them out in your workplace or school, make sure they're in all bathrooms. Or at least that all people have access to these products. Because blood has no gender, baby.
So I just had to call out sick from work because I've had these awful, unexplainable stomach cramps all day. And I really, really hope that I'm sick because, you know, I've been on hormones for a year and I've heard people say that this is around the time when they start getting like period cramps. And if I have to deal with this once a month, I am going to be so upset. I don't have 12 sick days a year. I'm just going to have to power through. That sounds awful.
Hi. So I did stop by your page really quickly to see that you were 14 years old. You've got so much time to learn and be more open-minded and more kind and accepting towards other people. So let me just really quickly try and tell you why what you're saying is wrong and hurtful. Let's start with only women can give birth. I'm a man. and I'm going to give birth, so you're already wrong there. But there are also lots of other people who are non-binary or intersex, and they give birth. And again, they're not women. Then the term breastfeeding versus chest feeding, well, for some people it's actually just more comfortable to call it chest feeding. Some women who have experienced trauma or been abused, they might prefer the term chest feeding. But then we loop back around to not all birthing people are women, so not all birthing people have breasts. Hence the term chest feeding. I understand that your opinions and your beliefs may be deep-rooted and ingrained in whatever your parents have taught you to believe, and that's okay. You still have plenty of time to form your own opinions and even educate others in your life.
So I came about like wanting to use neopronouns when I was with one of my exes. We don't talk about them. Anyways. No, but they use like cat neopronouns, and I was like, oh, those are so cute. Like I kind of want like cool pronouns, like something that fits me, because like cat pronouns very much suited them, but I was like, I want something that fits me specifically. And so I started looking, and I was like, okay, well, what about like my special interests? Like I can use something of that nature, something that relates to me. I'm autistic, and one of my biggest special interests is space. And I wanted to use Star and Star Self, but then I was like, two of my friends call me Star Child, and if I started using Star and Star Self, they would start using it while calling me Star Child, so that just seems a little bit redundant. And then I was like, the moon! Moon and Moon Self. I also use Glitch and Glitch Self, but that's just because I'm completely and utterly obsessed with Glitchcore. A lot of people don't understand why I use neopronouns. I just think they're cool. They make me feel good, I guess. I don't know, I just like them.
So I've been getting this question more and more about my pronouns. Basically, you just use them as they, but instead of the TH, it's a V. So they, them, their, themself. Or if that's still a little bit confusing, here's like the example of every form of it in a sentence. I see this like sentence example thing a lot for most pronouns, so hopefully that's not too confusing.
Here's what you can do instead. Here I like to use a Google form or a Microsoft form or any other survey app that works for you. I've stopped asking what your preferred pronouns are, and instead I say what are your pronouns, because your pronoun is part of your identity and not just a personal preference. One of the very important questions I like to ask is, may I use these pronouns in front of your parents or guardians? The reason why is because students may feel comfortable around you or their peers, but they might not be ready to let their parents know which pronouns they are using. And if a student uses different pronouns with you, their peers, or their parents, it's not your business to ask why. Using their pronouns respectfully is a great way to start building that relationship.
I'm going to be teaching you how to use prince, princess pronouns in sentences. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to use shark, sharks pronouns in sentences. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to use flower, flowers pronouns in sentences. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to use wolf, wolves pronouns in sentences. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to use paint, paints pronouns in sentences. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to use cat, cats pronouns. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to use that, that's pronouns in sentences. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to use the, ver, viz pronouns. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to use thon, thons pronouns in sentences. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to use they, them pronouns in sentences. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to use shroom, shrooms pronouns.
28-year-old Bridget Klein Simpson has identified as a woman for years, and she wants to get into better shape, so she went to the Bodyworks Gym for Women in Parksville for a membership. Klein Simpson says she was initially welcomed, but after one workout she was informed she was not allowed at the women's only gym.
Saying, sorry, we made a mistake, you're not actually allowed to be here, but you're more than welcome to use the co-ed facility. And I kind of just hung up, because I was devastated. I mean, there's really no other word for it.
I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. I am tired of TERFs making a mockery of real women. Oh, what? You were born with ovaries? You bleed every month? You have XX chromosomes? Yeah, that's cute. Tell me what other external factor that doesn't apply to all of you defines you. At the end of the day, you're out here thinking that trans women are making a mockery of you when it's the exact opposite. You are pretending that you know that you are a woman when the only people here who know that for sure are the ones who have put in the work to understand themselves. The trans women. You have put zero work into actually understanding yourself. You are only a woman because everybody else around you looked at these same external factors that you look at and said, seems like woman behavior to me. And you went, all right. The only person making a mockery of womanhood is you, because you do not fully understand what makes you a woman. Stop harassing
trans women. I don't even identify as a woman, and I'm more of a woman than you. It's okay to be scared of cishet men, but don't take it out on people who aren't even a threat.
Well, this is just lovely. I had a neighbor confront me for using the women's restroom. I lived here for 4.5 years. Everyone should know that I'm a trans woman. I've always been known as Kaylee. I've always used she, her pronouns. I've been having some stomach issues because of Trulicity, and I had to use the bathroom real quick, and they're single-use bathrooms, and it's the only place that I feel safe using the women's bathroom. Well, I got done and got out, and this neighbor was talking to another neighbor and started pointing out the sign. I knew exactly what she was talking about because there's a big old woman sign. And I'm like, is there a problem? She's like, yeah, you're using the woman's restroom. You're a man. And I said, I'm a trans woman. She's like, no, you're a man. And she kept saying that over and over. And she kept saying, you're not a she, you're a he. You shouldn't be using it. You were born a man. And just over and over. And honestly, I just lost it. And just started screaming and swearing. I just couldn't handle it. This is my home. This is my safe place. I should be able to use the restroom. The apartment manager knows I'm trans. Everyone knows my name is Kaylee. And then my group of friends, I thought my friends were all starting to yell at me saying I escalated, and because she had 2 kids. I didn't even see the kids. They were there, and I just lost it. Fight, flight, or freeze, and I fought. You don't know what it's like to be a trans person. And then my one friend started yelling at me, and none of them stood up for them. They blamed me that I was the one that was at fault. When none of them stood up to me when this person kept calling me he, she, he, man, like triggering and awful. Like, I deal with enough on here. Like, my apartment should be a safe place. There's nothing safe for a trans person. There is nothing safe for a trans person. This is the life, and it sucks. And even when you have your friends don't have your back. And then my one friend, Annette, just starts screaming at me, and I'm like, start screaming back at her. I'm done. These are fair weather friends. These are not the friends that I need, want, and deserve. And if I can't find it here, I will find it elsewhere. So, I don't know. I'm so triggered and feeling so awful. Like, I just want to die. It sucks.
My name is Professor Lionel Longlegs. My pronouns are they, fair, fairs, it, and they, them is just fine. So if you wanted to refer to me, you would say Faye is a drag storyteller. It loves to read, and some of their favorite books are Where the Wild Things Are and From the Stars in the Sky to the Fish in the Sea. And I have been reading with Drag Storyteller, with Drag Story Hour, for 1.5 years. And my drag character is a drag thing that can be anything in the world. Today I'm space, a lot of times I'm a notebook or a car, all sorts of wonderful things.
Hello everybody, this is Sissy Little Girl Pansy, and I wanted to show everybody the kind of diapers that I wear all the time. I am so glad that I am in diapers, and I am so glad that I am a little sissy baby girl. And I am so glad that I know that I will never ever have to be an adult ever again. And I just wish that everybody who wants to be a little sissy girl gets the chance to wear pretty clothes, they get the chance to wear diapers, and they get the chance to be a little baby girl. Okay, bye-bye.
These eco-friendly needle-felted packers are super lightweight, sweat and odor repellent, have these felt tabs on them so you can safety pin them to the underwear so they don't move around or fall down your pant leg, have fabric on the back to prevent itchiness, and they're made from local, naturally dyed wool. If this looks like euphoria to you, DM me on Insta to learn more or to order one.
So I don't know if this is considered an unpopular opinion, but if you have a daughter, you need to stop calling her princess if you do. The way that Disney has branded the princess is based on her beauty as her most important asset. This term also encourages the damsel in distress that needs to be rescued by a man. And it doesn't focus on their intelligence or integrity or any other character trait. Why don't we call girls scientist, engineer, doctor? Like, why does it have to be something cutesy like, oh, princess, what do you need? Like, no. My daughter's father called her princess yesterday, and I had to lecture him again because we do not use that term in this house. Even my own sisters have called her princess, and I will tell them, don't call her that. Maybe I come across as very controlling, but I think it's a very harmful word, and she shouldn't look up to that term.
If I ever have to have an abortion, you bet I'm gonna have a party. I'm like gonna have like cupcakes with like aborted fetuses drawn on them, lots of snacks, I'm gonna come up with some sort of cocktail and call it the aborted fetus. And me and all of my friends are just gonna hang out, eat a bunch of yummy dead fetus themed food, get drunk, and have a great old time.
This is probably gonna piss off a lot of people. But a relationship between a man and a woman is inherently unequal. And that goes for any relationship where someone is deciding to date their oppressor. Just like all white people have racism brainwashed into them, all males have misogyny brainwashed into them. And any male who claims not to be a misogynist is a misogynist, because a self-aware man knows that he has it brainwashed into him. And any time that a woman decides to be in a relationship with a man, she's making a sacrifice and a commitment knowing that she's dating her oppressor. Almost all women have sexual trauma and emotional abuse trauma, literally just from society. And she's taking a risk in being with you and making a commitment to help you undo your brainwashing. Now, of course, I'm not saying that people shouldn't date the opposite gender, but a lack of awareness can cause problems.
I just got out of a lecture and my professor said something that really struck me that I feel like should have been super obvious that I just had not connected the dots on before. And that is the fact that the term American citizen is like a racialized term. It's associated with whiteness, whether we want it to or not, because of the way that white supremacy is so intricately bound with the foundation of the country that we call America, that when you hear the word American citizen, the first thing that comes to mind is a white person.
The Republican Party built the Taliban army in Afghanistan, and they're currently building the Taliban army in Texas. That's right, the Texas Taliban is terrorizing women in Texas. They're letting them know that if the Taliban rape you and you get pregnant, you have to carry that terrorist baby to term. And if you don't carry that terrorist baby to term, you can be sued $10,000 by the Taliban. And I'm guessing more than one Taliban soldier can sue you. And the Taliban can sue not only the person getting the abortion, the person driving them to the abortion, they can sue the doctor that provides the abortion. Don't let them build a Taliban army in your state. Make sure you vote in every single election, every single one, because the Republican Taliban army is coming.
I keep forgetting I can't say certain words on here, so let's try this. Mostly I feel feminine or non-binary. Today I'm feeling really femme and cat-like as well. Yeah. But I also feel masculine, mostly boyish. I don't ever really want a woohoo. I'm proud to have a hoo-ha. But I also, sometimes want to take these guys off. But other times I'm happy to have them. I love to play with them. I love them. Other days I want to tape them down. I'm running out of time. But yeah, I go through stages of feeling feminine, non-binary, and sometimes boyish. So that's...
I just added bug to my list of pronouns, so here is a very quick tutorial on how to use bugs pronouns in sentences. Okay, let's go. I'm meeting up with my friend Moth later. Bug just dyed Bug's hair and it's a super cool green color right now. I think we're gonna go to Bug's house and play some video games. And then I think Bug said that Bug wanted to go to the store by Bug's self. So I'm gonna head out after that, and then maybe we'll get to hang out another time. I love hanging out with Moth. Bug is a super cool friend, and I'm so glad that Bug hangs out with me. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, that is how you use Bug's self pronouns. And I'm always willing to answer questions about my pronouns.
Dolce, why don't you introduce yourself to the class? Okay? Hi, my name's Dolce with 2 eyes. I feel anxious when I'm high.
The reason we have so much discrimination in the world today is because you feed your children animal products. From birth, we're taught that certain animals, like pets, should be loved and cared for, but then these animals over here, cows, pigs, chickens, and fish, should be tortured and murdered. We don't question these sorts of things when we're taught this as a child. If you're told a lie enough times, it becomes your reality. Teaching this to kids is the root of all discrimination that we see in the world. Just imagine if we taught our children to treat all animals fairly and not to treat certain beings or species differently just because they might look a bit different from us or they're not as intelligent. If we teach humans not to discriminate based on species, we would 100% see far less discrimination amongst our own species as humans. People always say that we should worry about our own species before we start worrying about the animals. But we've got it all backwards. Let's stop indoctrinating our future generations to discriminate between species, and then maybe we can fix some of the things that we see between humans today.
I got a message today for some white people. If we have white people listening, paying attention, I wouldn't mind if you would do this with me. We rub our chests, we find our heartbeat, and we say, we did this. We did this. White supremacy did this. I'm talking about Tyree Nichols. The police didn't do this. The Memphis Police Department didn't do this. White supremacy did this.
One thing to say. You better work, bitch.
So great. Everyone's going to get a crystal star-shaped pendant and a little charm in there, a Progress Pride flag, a Planned Parenthood bracelet, amazing stuff from our friends at NAMI, condoms, lube, dental latex dam. Thank you, Evolution Candy. Oh my gosh, Carter, hi, I see you there. And cute little cards with information, resource card that we have here that's going in every bag, and our beautiful program for Queer Prom with a special thank you for all of our sponsors and donors and volunteers and some loving, welcoming words for everyone about it. So yeah, so here we are. Look at that. The swag bags are coming together. Everyone will take one home when prom ends.
All right, now I'm going to do a quick little cheers that I normally do. I mean, I know there's little babies here, but close your ears. This is just a tradition that all shows normally do. So raise your glasses. Cheers to you. Cheers to me. Cheers to the ones that lick his. Yeah. our little helpers right here picking up our money. That right there is our future, guys. That right there.
Man, I feel like a woman. Hey! Oh, yeah. I get totally crazy. Get the feeling. Come on, baby. I feel like a woman.
I'm Addison.
And I'm Ethan.
We've been together for about
5 years.
And
Been
married
for 3 years.
I use they, them pronouns. Being non-binary just means that I just don't identify with the gender I was assigned at birth, and I don't identify exclusively with being a man or a woman. I'm something in between, outside of that binary.
My pronouns are he or they. I also identify as a non-binary. To me, being a non-binary means having the sense of freedom to explore my gender in whichever way I want. I don't have to perform or pretend to be someone I'm not. I can be my authentic self.
It's a tradition that's been around a long time.
Your 2021 homecoming queen is Zachary Wilmer.
Not everyone gets a moment like this.
It was literally like a dream. But the fact that I won, it was just really special to me.
Rockbridge senior Zachary Wilmore won the title of this year's homecoming queen. He's the first boy to do so at his school.
I took a really quick Instagram poll. I was like, should I be king or queen? And they were like, queen would look prettier on the sash. And I was like, you're so correct. So I chose queen.
Hey guys, we're live from Rockbridge. His decision for the queen spot goes beyond just the sparkly dress.
Queen is a term used by gay men specifically as an endearing thing.
It felt really good as the parent of an LGBTQ student who was sitting right next to me that they felt that inclusivity.
And then no one gave me a hard time about it in the hallways. All I got was just compliments.
However, this isn't the first win for the teenager. With over 1 million followers on TikTok, Wilmore has become an influencer online. He's shown the outfits he wears to school that got him dress code violations.
A lot of the times I did feel like they could target students, and I felt a little bit targeted.
Let's talk about what to do if you want to change your school's dress code.
The district says they're making efforts to change the dress code before Wilmore graduates.
They put me in charge of creating the new dress code, which was really nice. I originally made it because I was like, hey, I am upset that this is happening to me, and that's just this is my story, and eventually it did create change.
I'm a savage. These kids are part of mainstream community and culture at this point, as well they should be.
As time goes on, this tradition looks different at Rockbridge.
It was the final stepping stone.
And now more people can experience this moment.
Just for me to be people do like me, I feel happy.
From now on, it's gonna be ran by women, owned by trans women, for all women. For all women really around the world to celebrate the power of feminism.
If you don't play into the trans agenda, you're cast out as a bully.
Let me make it clear why this has suddenly become my concern. It is because in America, in 2007, had exactly one gender clinic. One. Anyone care to guess how many we have now? 300. So there are now hundreds of pediatric gender clinics in the US. Planned Parenthood gives out testosterone on a first visit. Depending on the state, it absolutely gives testosterone to minors. Planned Parenthood in Oregon gives it to 15-year-old girls on their own recognizance. They don't even need a parental note. Kaiser dispenses it. So for today's teens, whether they have real or typical gender dysphoria or not, testosterone is easily available. Double mastectomy, known as top surgery, is readily available. No, they do not necessarily need parental approval, depending on the state, and they definitely don't need a therapist's note. Okay, so let's talk about the transgender phenomenon. I'm going to start by walking through the major issues and claims about youth and adolescent gender transition, and we'll work our way to the big question, which is, how did we get here? How did we get to a place in which we're all supposed to pretend that the only way you know that I'm a woman is if I give you my pronouns? How did we get to an America in which a 15-year-old in Oregon can begin a course of testosterone without her parents' permission? A lot of the answer, of course, comes from the hard left, but at least one part of the answer is conservative squeamishness about issues we'd rather not deal with at all. So let's begin by dealing with it. What is gender dysphoria? Gender dysphoria, the severe discomfort in one's biological sex, is absolutely real. It's also exceedingly rare, typically afflicting roughly 0.01% of the population, and overwhelmingly males, so roughly 1 in 10,000 males, meaning nobody you went to high school with. And it typically began in early childhood, ages 2 to 4. Little boys insisting, no, mommy, I'm not a boy, I'm a girl. Boys who were insistent, consistent, and persistent in this feeling that they were in the wrong body. For the nearly 100-year history of diagnosing gender dysphoria, these little kids were what we were talking about when we talked about gender dysphoria. But in the last decade, thanks in large part to social media, there's been another population that claims to have gender dysphoria. This is a population that never before had gender dysphoria in any significant numbers. In fact, before 2007, there was no extant scientific literature on their having gender dysphoria at all. Teenage girls. This is the phenomenon Brown University public health researcher Dr. Lisa Littman called rapid onset gender dysphoria. And it refers to a sudden spike in transgender identification among teen girls with no childhood history of gender dysphoria at all. Not only have the rates of these girls claiming trans identification risen dramatically in the US and all across the West, over 4,400% rise in teen girls presenting for gender treatment at the UK's National Gender Clinic, for instance. But teenage girls are now the leading demographic of those claiming to have gender dysphoria. What's going on? The answer is social contagion. One more instance of teen girls sharing and spreading their pain. There's a long history of peer contagion with this demographic, of course. We know that anorexia and bulimia spread this way. And we know that this demographic, teen girls, is in the midst of the worst mental health crisis on record, with the highest rates of anxiety, self-harm, and clinical depression we've ever seen. We know that the population who tends to fall into social contagions is the same high anxiety, depressive group of girls who struggle socially in adolescence and tend to hate their bodies. Add to that a school environment where you can achieve immediate valorization and popularity by declaring a trans identity, and of course, the delicious temptation to stick it to mom. Add further the great many trans social media influencers who can't wait to convince troubled teen girls that identifying as trans and starting a course of testosterone will cure all of their problems. And you have a very fast-spreading social phenomenon. I've spoken to families at top girls' schools that will attest that 15 or 20%, or in one case 30%, of the girls in their daughter's 7th grade class now identify as trans. When you see that, you're witnessing a social contagion in action. There is no other reasonable explanation. These teen girls are in a great deal of very real pain. Almost all of them have dealt at some point with an eating disorder or engaged in cutting or been diagnosed with other serious mental health comorbidities. And now they're being allowed to self-diagnose with gender dysphoria by a medical establishment that's decided its job is merely to affirm and agree with these girls. A medical establishment that has, with regard to trans-identified adolescents, effectively turned its doctors into life coaches. Since my book, Irreversible Damage, was published in June of 2020, more evidence than I ever could have imagined has come out indicating that this thesis is correct. You may not know the name Keira Bell. This is a young woman in the UK, very troubled in adolescence, who was rushed to transition in her teen years and came to regret it. She underwent double mastectomy and spent years on testosterone, only to realize that her problem had never been gender. She sued the National Gender Clinic in England, and back in December, the High Court of Justice examined her case and the claim of similarly situated plaintiffs, and she won. The court examined the medical protocols applied to her, protocols identical to the ones we have in America, and the High Court of Justice was horrified. It was absolutely appalled that a young girl had been allowed to consent to eliminating her future fertility and sexual function at an age when she could not have possibly gauged that loss. She had begun transitioning at 15. This case was called a landmark case in England. It was covered by the Times of London, The Economist, and even The Guardian. It was seen as a real condemnation of the effort to fast track so many young girls to transition. And one of the things the court noted was that the clinic had been unable to show any psychological improvement in the girls it had treated with transitioning hormones. If you didn't read about the landmark Keira Bell case in the American legacy media, well, that's because they decided to pretend it didn't happen. Just as they continued to ignore or dismiss the stories of the thousands of detransitioners. These are young women who underwent medical transition and later regretted it and attempt to reverse course. A lot of these treatments are permanent, but they do what they can to try to reverse some of the effects. So in America, the teen trans phenomenon gets treated as a conservative issue. That is a political issue rather than a medical one. And so, perhaps the greatest medical scandal of this decade is dismissed as a conservative preoccupation. Lies are told about the risks of the treatments we administer to young children, both to play down the very real dangers and to wildly exaggerate to the degree to which we know medical transition to be a cure. Lies are told about the researchers and journalists who try to report on the social contagion among teen girls in order to discredit that hypothesis or to stifle its revelation. Lies are told both about the inherent dangers of eradicating women's protective spaces and rights, and to exaggerate the degree to which this is the only way to save a community from suicide. The way to think about gender ideology is that it is a sibling of critical race theory. Critical race theory goes into schools to convince white kids that they bear the original sin of their skin color. Gender ideology marches into those same schools and tells kindergartners, yes, they do this throughout the public school system in California, beginning in kindergarten, to tell preschool children that there are a great many genders. And while someone may have guessed at birth that you were a boy or a girl, only you know your true gender. Critical race theory postulates that race is the most important feature of any person, and that white people, existing as they do in a state of racial privilege, are not able to participate in a wide variety of discussions about our democracy. Gender ideology tells women, which it calls cis women, that they are not entitled to their fear or their sense of unfairness as biological men invade their protective spaces and claim their trophies and records and scholarships. In fact, women and girls can't even use the English language to describe their problem, since calling a trans woman biological male is an act of transphobic bigotry. Both of these invidious, mendacious dogmas have corrupted our schools, our universities, almost all of our legacy newspapers and magazines, the medical accrediting organizations, American Academy of Pediatrics, American Medical Association, American Psychiatric Association, Pediatric Endocrine Society, and even our scientific journals. Just to give you a sense of how far things have gone, about 8 months ago, I was contacted by a member of the National Association of Science Writers. The NASW is an association of journalists with scientific backgrounds tasked with explaining scientific phenomena to the public. And the member of the NASW who contacted me wanted me to know that a member of the online forum had been expelled for mentioning my book. I contacted the member who had been, the person who mentioned my book who had been expelled, Sean Scott, and he told me he hadn't even read my book. It just sounded interesting to him. He was immediately banned from the forum and labeled transphobic. I've heard the same thing from endocrinologists and psychiatrists and pediatricians and scientific researchers who write around these issues. If they point out the risks of gender interventions, they struggle to get their research into journals, and very often their letters to the editor pointing out flaws in studies touting all these interventions, those letters aren't published. The funding goes to research that promotes gender transition and downplays the risks. There are phalanxes of young doctors now, many of them in pediatrics or child psychiatry, who believe their primary job is social justice. And they don't hide this. They brag about it online every day. And you're starting to see this kind of thing put into practice. Perhaps America's most prestigious hospital, Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, recently announced that it would offer preferential care to patients based on race. And on questions of gender, we're seeing it with a mass celebration of transitioning treatments provided to young people by doctors who show an inexcusable complacency about the risks of these treatments. The Washington Post just last week quoted some of these young doctors and claimed that it was a factual matter that puberty blockers are fully reversible. That was the quote. Puberty blockers are fully reversible. Except that that's not something anyone can claim to know yet. They're certainly not psychologically reversible, and they may not be physically reversible either. We simply don't have the data yet. So you're seeing this startlingly quick corruption of medicine and science. And it's a symptom of a larger woke corruption of American society. Now, I'm often asked, why are the trans activists doing this? Why would a teacher tell her class of kindergartners that only they know their true gender? What could possibly be the justification for telling small boys that they might really be girls and telling small girls that they might really be boys? The biggest hint I got to the answer came from talking to detransitioners. Remember, these are young women who underwent transition and then later regretted it. Again and again, they told me that while they were transitioning, they were angry, they were sullen, and they were politically radical. They very often cut off their families. They were coached in this by transgender influencers online, and they rushed toward their new glitter families. You'll often see gender-confused people among the ranks of Antifa or at Black Lives Matter rallies. Having turned against their families of origin, they are easy prey for those who recruit revolutionaries. Put another way, the chaos is the point. Just as the point of critical race theory is to turn the American people against one another, so the point of gender ideology is to stop the formation of stable families, the building blocks of American life. Let me say this again. This is not the goal of all transgender adults, but it is the goal of gender ideology and the transgender movement, namely the creation of a new victim class eager to join the revolution. So what do we do about this? How do we push back on the onslaught of gender ideology? First, we must oppose the indoctrination of children in gender ideology. There is absolutely no good reason for it, and it does very real harm. You can absolutely insist that all children treat each other kindly without indoctrinating an entire generation in gender confusion. Second, in public, we must speak up and we must speak the truth. Always, wherever we find ourselves, at work, whatever we do, we must refuse to recite the lies. If conservatives are to confront these issues, we must know something about them. We must overcome our squeamishness. We must clearly distinguish, for instance, between transgender Americans, many of whom are wonderful, and an ideological movement which seeks to warp our children and wreck our families. This is a movement that would turn our children against themselves because its advocates know there's no greater horror to a parent. There is no quicker way to bring America to its knees than by prompting our children to do irreversible damage to themselves. The people who've been pushing this ideology, they got a big head start on us, perhaps by a decade. But they have awakened a sleeping giant. The success of my book, the fact that I was invited to speak to you today, and the state legislators that are now debating these issues testify that a cultural battle is at last being fought. We cannot afford to lose. These are our kids and grandkids. Our future literally depends on our winning this. Thank you. This is the first audience I've been to that didn't want to throw things at me.
Thank you, Ms. Schreier.
Billboard Chris on Twitter, who's an activist that has been traveling around the country to expose gender ideology and doing fantastic work. He posted a couple things to Twitter yesterday from the D-Trans Reddit forum, where you hear the testimony of girls who have been through this, who have been subjected to this, who have been victimized by it. And their stories are just, words escape you and to describe it. I mean, to call it tragic is to understate the case. So let me read a couple of these to you. Here's one. This is someone who's 17. Here's what she says. I hate my voice. Every time I open my effing mouth, I sound like a freak. I've ruined my life with my stupid decisions I made as a kid. The doctors ruined my life by allowing a barely functioning, mentally ill child with severe OCD and then undiagnosed BPD to go on hormones that would completely change my body. I can manage to get the pitch of my voice up relatively decently to the point where it's always in the androgynous or low female range on a vocal pitch app, but there's always something that seems off. It never sounds female, always like a very high-pitched, stereotypical gay male voice or a male trying to force a female voice and failing. I'm tempted to just stop talking altogether. In my worst moments, all I want to do is tear out my vocal cords and be done with it. I've been on T for about 2 years, this testosterone. Although it was relatively sporadic and it wasn't very consistent with either the gel or the shots at all, I've only just managed to get off the hormones now, as the shots I was on were every 3 months. thankfully, not a lot else changed while on testosterone. No facial hair, no facial changes, and I never went through with any surgeries. I'm still only 17. I've tried watching YouTube videos like trans voice lessons, and absolutely nothing in the videos makes any sense, and I don't find them helpful in the slightest. I'm legitimately suicidal because of the decisions I made as a kid. It's all my fault. I don't know how long I can keep doing this. Well, it's not her fault at all. Of course, this is what the kids are left with. They're left to feel like it is their fault when it is entirely the fault of the doctors and the parents who allowed this to happen. Entirely their fault, 100%. And this, by the way, there's no surgery here. This is just, quote, just from the testosterone, which we're assured is reversible. It's not. Irreversible. So this is what a child goes through after changing her voice. Now, what happens when they go further than that? This is another one. This is from another user on the DTrans Reddit forum. I'm a 17-year-old girl with a flat chest, a deep voice, a visible Adam's apple, and some facial hair. There's no reason for me to continue to live. I destroyed my life, and I feel like all I have is stupid for me to have. All the hope I have is stupid for me to have. I don't think any person will ever want to date me. Before all this, people were into me, but I destroyed that. Now no one is ever going to like me. There's nothing I can really do without getting reminded of my past and how much I miss it. I feel ashamed of what I did. I'm scared that people will never let me do decisions on my own anymore. I was just a kid, and I would have needed someone to help me accept myself, but my therapist didn't question my transness. I can't stop thinking about the life I could have had. I also think other people will now believe that there's something better than me. I love my mom. She's an amazing mom. She stopped me the first time from transitioning, but the second time she was also brainwashed and sadly thought that when all these professionals say it's the right thing to let your kid transition, then it must be the right thing. She thinks it's all her fault, but it isn't. I want to kill myself, but then she'll feel even more miserable. How can I kill myself and let her know that I want her to be happy? I'm 17. Why do I have to think about ending my life? It's too much for me to handle. There's no joy in my life anymore. So this child is 17 years old and got the surgery. There's another post where she talks about how she got the surgery when she was 14. So this is 3 years later. And we don't know exactly based on this when the regret started to set in, but 3 years later. So you follow up 3 years later, still childhood. And this is what you find. As I said, words cannot quite do justice to the enormity of the evil here, the depths of the evil. The people who are pushing this and promoting it are, as I have said many times, and I believe with every fiber of my being, these are among the worst human beings, the ones who are pushing it and promoting it and doing it to kids, are among the worst human beings who have ever lived on the planet. I mean, they belong in the same category. The Nazi comparisons and all the rest of it are tired and overplayed, but they belong right in that category. In the category of the most monstrous demons to have ever walked the face of the earth.
My family immigrated from the former Soviet Union, specifically Kiev, Ukraine. And we as believers came to the United States, under the status of religious persecution. Our beliefs were a problem. The government couldn't control it, and they didn't want it. They didn't like it. I see this flash, program, infringing on that ability. When they're teaching our kids a certain something, and we as Christians are now considered, a problem, And to me, that's very sad to see this breakdown, in the fabric of the American society.
The state of Washington is forcing new gender identity and sex ed guidelines on every public school. The approved curriculum sexualizes children at an early age and invites them to question their gender identity. This radical curriculum undermines parental authority with dangerous, medically inaccurate, and explicit information, with children role-playing and discussing controversial topics. But concerned parents and others just like you are fighting back. This is one of their stories.
I was one of 2 parent representatives in the district that was selected to be on this instructional materials committee. We didn't get to look through the textbook or the curriculum, but I didn't like that it was from Seattle, because that's a district that is so different value-wise than ours, our small little district here. She said that was the only one the OSPI said they could use. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't, for a sex ed curriculum that's an option in this district, I thought that doesn't sound right. Why would the Office of Public Instruction say that this is what you have to use? You have to use ours and pay for ours.
I actually ordered from King County Health the entire set of flash curriculum binders. If you look at the sites that this material sends kids to, they're strongly pointed at support of alternative lifestyles and views.
It has numerous reminders throughout the curriculum that students can get birth control, they can get pregnancy tests and abortions without parental consent.
Said, I don't think I can spread this word, but I think people need to show up to this board meeting and find out what this is about.
We showed up there to hear the read-through of the curriculum and then stay further for the general school board meeting.
And then the second reading, which would make it permanent, would make the decision final, was 2 weeks later. So we had a couple weeks to try and organize.
So I reached out to a group of my contacts with the Slavic community as well as others, and simply just informed them about what was going on here in Battleground, and told them about the dates and times that these were going to be voted on.
So we went, in a matter of 3 weeks, we went from not knowing anything about this to having almost 250 people show up at the meeting that night, and where it was announced that they were going to put the curriculum on hold. So it was a great thing, and very rewarding.
I'm into this because I saw this for what it really is. It's an attack upon children. And it's kind of an unfair attack at that.
To the people who are sitting on the sidelines, to the people who are on the fences about, should I get involved, does it even matter? I would tell them to really shake that off. It's a very bad mentality to have a defeated mindset about stuff like this. People don't want to wake up that one day and get a new taste of a reality where they don't have the rights, where they don't have the freedoms. You absolutely must act now.
Because what's coming is the war on nuclear family, the war on children, the war on a healthy state of any country. That is the foundation. And so I saw that, I was like, this is crazy. What we're doing is promoting something that is going to overturn the rights of majority. And we are silent because we don't know.
We just want to continue and encourage people. Look what happened at Battleground, when we showed out with those types of numbers. And if you get together, if you get a consensus, we have information, we have medical information, we have legal information, at least for the state of Washington, and resources. So we just want to encourage you that, if you become a voice and a presence, you can make a difference.